This is episode 3. I'm going to jump right into it. For today, we've got Brian Dixon on the show. Brian is a freak of nature.
It's the road to the wealth. Yeah. I do it for health. Yeah. For my kids and my spouse. Yeah. Financially sound. You're the bad dad.
Well, first and foremost, Brian, man, I really appreciate you doing this. Just tell us a bit about who you are and what you have going on.
Oh, I love it. Well, Joshua, thanks so much for having me. Listen, whenever you're listening, 2019, 2021, whenever you're listening, like, you know, the world's changed, right? The world has changed in the last 5 to 10 years. And I believe that every single one of you listening right now, that you have a message to share and an audience to serve. That's the way to get to wealth. That's it right there. Let's figure out who your people are and how do you help them. And right. And so you've got your audience to serve. You've got your message to share. You put the two of them together. That is the road to wealth. It's right there. So focusing on that specific audience. So what I do is I'm a clarity coach. So I help people figure out their audience, their message. And now that they know those two, what are the products? I call that AMP. I want to help you amplify your life. I want to help you amplify your impact and your income by helping you figure out who's your audience, what's your message, and what are the products that you offer to help your audience get unstuck or to help your audience get success.
Got it. And I love that, by the way. The book, and I think you somewhat hinted at it there, the book is incredible, man. I picked it up on Audible. You read it yourself, which I really appreciate. I really appreciate.
Took 2 days. It was exhausting.
But I've heard that more than once. I've heard recording that book is almost as hard as writing it.
Oh yeah, it was tough. Yeah. But it was fun. Yeah.
Well, I had the chance to listen to it. In fact, I'll tell a quick story. I took a trip to Phoenix and we actually went out to the Grand Canyon. I chewed through most of your book on that trip, and in the car on that drive, it's a 2-3 hour drive out there, plugged it in and had the lady friend in the car with me, the girlfriend with me, and started your Mirror Manifesto chapter about halfway through. And she made me, hey, rewind this. We've got to start at the beginning. This is really interesting. And man, she's really tapped into it. So you've got two fans out of it. Yeah. I'm a huge fan. What I loved most was very prescriptive. You're very, I'm going to use the term vulnerable, right? You talk about some of the weaknesses that were exposed and things that were uncovered through your journey, right? You even talk about some of your practices as Float Tank or the Mirror Manifesto that I'm hoping that we can tap into in a second. I think a question I had as I sort of finished this book up was, what made you write a book about starting with your people?
That's a great question. Originally, the book was going to be about how to grow your business, how to market your business, and not be a jerk. Like, that was what the book was going to be about. And as I started doing some research, I believe that any message that's worth sharing has to come from a deep well. It has to come from your own personal experience and often from your own personal pain. So in getting ready for the book, I was working with this business coach and he said, Brian, if you want to take your life to the next level, like, you're about to write a book, if you want to take your life to the next level, you need to do a 360 assessment. Essentially, you need to hear from the people in your life that already see you. Because if you think about it, Joshua, like, you've never seen yourself. You've only seen a reflection of yourself. But the people around you, your girl, my wife, she's seen me more than I've ever seen myself because I've never actually seen myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So why would I not get feedback from other people in my life and go, what am I good at? That's really helpful to know. A lot of people have never asked that question. Go on your Facebook profile right now and say, weird question alert. What am I good at? You will get 20, 30, 100 responses. It might make you want to quit your job. It might make you want to start because the people around you are dying to tell you the truth. They really are. You just never asked them. So what am I good at is a really powerful question. Second one, included in this 360 assessment that I did, is where's Brian stuck? What's getting in Brian's way? Where's Brian not doing well? Or where's Brian kind of failing in life or in business? That was a hard one to read those answers. And then the third one is, if you could tell Brian anything anonymously, what would you say? That imagine if you gave the people in your life, so your friends, your colleagues, your old boss, that client that fired you 3 years ago, like everybody, if you gave them a window into your life and you said, listen, I'm not even going to know who said it, but please tell me the truth. Like, just please tell me the truth. And people telling you the truth will set you free, right? And I am so free now compared to where I was like 2 years ago, because I was trying and struggling and faking it before I made it. And I just kept blowing it. And once I asked people authentically, honestly, anonymously, tell me the truth, I got some hard feedback and it really rocked me, but it also gave me an opportunity to move forward.
So you talk a little bit about the assessment in the book. I say a little bit. I believe you have a full chapter dedicated to it, but I want to spend some time unpacking it just because this was something that it hit home for me in that I think you're right. I mean, there are a number of successes, right, that I think it'd be great to hear from and stroke my ego a bit. Yeah. But there are also a number of bridges I've burned or mistakes that I've made or projects that I've failed on or relationships that are tainted that have gone totally sort of unsoothed, right? You just kind of leave out there. And I can't imagine, if I sent out 30 of those questions, if I just sent those 3 questions, what am I good at? What is Josh, where is Josh stuck? And if you could tell me anything anonymously, what would you say? I can imagine what sort of comments or remarks would come back. What was the assessment? I think my first question was the assessment just those 3 questions, or tell me just a bit more about what the assessment looked like. Is it a software? Was it paper? Just kind of help me understand what that looked like.
Yeah, to actually do it, I'll do second question, then first question. But
sure.
To actually do it, like you could just do that as a Google form. Like you do it for free as a Google form, get a shareable link. You say, I'm not going to ask you for your email address. I won't know who you are. Mm-hmm. And then people will be real. And those 3 questions alone really impact you. The one that I did is called 360 Reach. And it was really about personal branding, because I'm a messenger. So I'm an author, speaker, and a blogger. And so it asked questions like, if Brian was a car, what kind of car would he be? If Brian was an animal, what kind of animal would he be? Those were kind of dumb, honestly. Like I didn't really see the point of those, but it was also a little helpful to go, okay, like, do people see me as a high level? Am I a high fee, work with just a few people? Or am I a low fee, kind of work with everybody? Like that kind of stuff was helpful. So for those out there listening right now that are like trying to grow their Instagram or get on TikTok or like whatever the new social media platform is, and they want to get their personal brand out there, the 360 Reach one is a really good one. But, it costs money and it was a little complicated. I think just doing a Google form, the key to a 360 assessment is it needs to be anonymous because there's somebody in your life right now, your brother-in-law, your ex-girlfriend, you're the mom of your friend. And every time you go over to your friend's house, the mom is looking at you and going, oh, he has this brilliant business idea, but he's not paying attention. It could be millions of dollars. And yet I can't tell him that because he never even asks me. But what if you did ask her? Mm-hmm. What if you said, I just want some anonymous feedback? So here's a story I haven't shared anywhere else before. So I used to be a camp counselor at this like Bible camp, when I was in high school and college with like middle school kids, basically. That was my job, was to be the counselor. And then I was also the climbing wall instructor during the day.
Nice.
And so I did that as sort of a summer job. And as I got older, as I graduated college, I had a leadership position at the camp because I worked there like 5 years in a row. And in the leader meeting, they were clearing out some old files. And we got to see our employee like application files, which I've never seen that before. Yeah. But because I was a leader, I was allowed to see it now. And I looked back on the 3 references that I got when I was like 16 years old for the first time I got hired at this camp. And it was a family friend who gave me a scathing review, like did not want me to work at this camp because threw snowballs off of a roof and hit some kids. And, and so he told this whole story of how I'm a jerk and I'm a bad guy when I was like 15 and a half, put it in this application form. I asked for him to give me a reference and that's what he wrote in it. And the funny thing is, he never told me. He put it in a form that almost prevented me from ever getting hired at this camp in the first place. I got to see it 5 years later when I was 20-something. But think about that. A family friend who is actually a really successful business person had a very strong opinion about me, and yet he never told me. And so think about that. There are people in your life right now who see this major blind spot, and it's preventing you from making money. It's preventing you from landing a deal. It's preventing you from getting fit. It's preventing you from dating their daughter. It's preventing you from something really awesome, but they have no vehicle to share that feedback with you. So that's why an anonymous survey can be really powerful.
And yeah, coming into this, I expected the answer to be it's a software. So you need to apply for it or purchase it and send it out. And the fact that you could Yeah, I didn't think about, I mean, spin up a Google form. It's totally anonymous. You send that out and you gave a couple examples there of, I mean, I think what perfect examples. I think your ex-girlfriend would give you a bunch of good insight. I think,
Who would know better?
yeah, exactly.
You know, the funny thing is we had my college reunion. I went to college up in Canada. I live in North Carolina now. And we had a big college reunion this summer. Two of my ex-girlfriends were there. And now they're married and have kids. And we actually had like a pizza party at my ex-girlfriend's house with her husband and the kids. Like it was it was like Ghost of Christmas Future, like seeing your alternative life. It was so strange.
Yeah.
But we're at a point of health now. She read my book. She knows I really want authentic feedback. And she told me what it was like to date me.
Wow.
And I was listening to her and she's like, you know, I see that you've changed, but here's a couple things that always really annoyed me about you. And I was like, and I wasn't defensive. I was like, that's really helpful. And some of what you're saying, I haven't outgrown yet. So I really appreciate the feedback. So imagine if you gave somebody that license to speak into your life, it's only going to help you grow. And when you grow, your wealth grows, right? Your fitness grows, your relationships grow. So why would you not want to grow?
Yeah, 100%. I think the only question I can find here is, who did you have a strategy and maybe who you targeted first? And I'm assuming as maybe you targeted folks that were really close to you out of the gate and then expanded that reach. Did your questions change with that expanse? But I guess just kind of help me understand who you went after and then how you expanded it.
Yeah, you know, I started with people that I thought would give me good feedback.
Of course.
So I started with a couple mentors, a couple friends. You know, I have a mastermind group, so a couple of my mastermind members and a couple of friends, and I think like one of my pastors or something.
Stop
like that.
there, man. You're good.
You know, start there, and I'm like, okay, they're going to have enough insight into my life. And then I'm a person of faith, so then I kind of prayed over it, and I was like, is there anybody else? And literally, there was a person like name just came into my mind, and it was somebody that I hadn't talked to for a long time. Somebody who I knew had a negative opinion of me. Because think about it, like in human relationships, we are going to have misunderstandings. Just I say something, you hear something completely different. Well, who's right? I don't know. Both of us, neither of us. Like who knows, right? But you're going to have these misunderstandings because some words I use mean something different to you than they mean to me, or you pick up a tone that I didn't quite mean, or you know, all kinds of stuff. We misinterpret all day long. And so there was a name that came to mind, and it was somebody who I knew was going to give me negative feedback. But I thought, you know what? In every criticism, there's a hint of truth. There's a little bit of truth in there. And so what if I could just be a miner, you know, like an archaeologist and just dig a little bit? I'll have to see past some of the negative stuff, but there's something in there that I can do something about. And so as I added her to this list of this automated thing that you basically just grab their email address, you put it in a form, you press go, and it sends it for you. Because it doesn't come from you, it comes from the system. Then I realized, I have this old email account that I used when I had this other business that didn't go very far. But I worked with a bunch of people that haven't heard from me for a long time, but know me kind of well. And so I logged in, I had to find the old password, went into this old Gmail account, and I grabbed like 5 people from there and I added them to the thing and I sent it to them. And the thing about the system is you never really know who fills it out. So I think I had like a 50% take rate, like about 50% of the people I sent it to actually took it. So to this day, I don't know who filled it out. I've had a few people walk up to me or text me and say, oh yeah, I filled out that thing. But I still don't know exactly who filled out what or who said what. And that's not really the point. You know, I think you get to a point of statistical significance, you know, where you get enough people saying something and you're like, oh, that's been said 3 times. I might want to pay attention to that.
Definitely. So how many do you believe or feel you sent out?
I put it in the book. I think it was over 50 that I sent out. And it was like 30 something that took it. You know, the actual point of the exercise though, is what do you do with the information?
Exactly.
So after I got this really positive feedback, it was like 5 pages of positive feedback. But I skipped all over that and I got to the constructive feedback, right? The negative stuff.
Sure.
And at least 3 times the words people and projects came up. And it was Brian puts projects over people. And it hit me, whoa, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a business owner, I'm a coach. How could I put projects over people? Like in a really negative way, right? Like I'm so focused on the goal that I burn people out, they quit or I get fired or like they don't want to work with me anymore because I'm so focused on the goal and on their feelings.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that and read it there in black and white, like on the screen, I just did this little reflective exercise. I do this like morning routine, and I wrote out, who is this true of? Who is this true of in my life that I've put a project in front of them? And I just started writing a list of names. Okay, that video editor that I fired because he didn't show up, but he also had a sick kid. Oh, wow. So I wrote his name down. Mm-hmm. And then that lady that I did a course with, but she didn't finish the scripts on time, and she didn't like her course because she didn't do the work. But she's probably thinking I put projects over people, so I wrote her name down. And I started writing all this list of names. And then I went into my email account, I searched their name, and I sent an email. And I said, hey, listen, I know this is like out of the blue, but I need to take responsibility. I want to apologize to you for the way that our relationship ended. I want to take responsibility, and I'm asking for your forgiveness. So I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? No excuses, no explanation, right? Yeah. No justification, just an apology and an ask, which is, would you forgive me? And every single person I sent that to wrote back and said, yeah, sounds good. Like, no problem, Brian. Sounds awesome. And then it was a few months later, I'm speaking at a conference, and I'm like living my best life. I'm like, I cleared up my past. Yeah. Like, so many people like take their past to the grave. And I'm like, I'm turning 40, and I'm like, I've cleared up decades of relationship drama.
Nobody hates me.
Right? This is awesome. And I'm on stage in front of a couple hundred people speaking at this blogger conference, and I'm like right in my zone. And then I look in the back of the room, in the middle of my talk, I look in the back of the room, and as if there's a spotlight from heaven, there's this lady that just walked in the back of the conference room or the convention center. And I forgot about her. I had worked with her years before, and it wasn't cleaned up. Like, it ended messy. And that's the thing. I have a business coach I'm working with right now, and he says, like, we've got to clean up these relationships. It's on us to clean them up. And sure enough, there she was. I'm like, I got to go clean that up. I just had this voice inside, Yeah. And I wasn't even man enough to deal with it at the conference. Like, I waited until I got home, and then maybe a couple days later, and maybe actually a week or two later. And then I sent her an email, and I said, hey, listen, I saw you at the conference, and I realized that I need to clean this up. I realized that, the way I handled the closing of our business wasn't my best self. And I apologize. Will you forgive me? And she wrote me back. I kept refreshing. Like, when is she going to write me back?
Yeah, right.
She wrote me back almost right away. And she said, yeah, right. If you're really serious, you would refund my money, because she paid like a deposit for a project we worked on together. Yeah. And I've been learning a lot about myself and about relationships. And for those that are in a significant relationship, with wife, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, you got to check in with your people, right? So I walked downstairs, and I said to my wife, Julie, I was like, listen, I said the lady's name, and I'm like, this lady wants a refund from like 3 years ago. And Julie was like, who are you talking about? I'm like, let me explain. So she said, if that's what you need to do, you need to do it. Like, if that's the right thing to do. So I came back upstairs, got back on the computer, wrote her back and said, you tell me what it will take, because I want to clear this up today. And she wrote me back the number, and the number was like almost $1,000. I was like, $1,000? It was right at Christmas. It was a couple of years ago. I was like, I do not want to send some random lady $1,000, but I realized that's the cost of the pain. The broken relationships in our life cost us something. So seeing a tangible number, I was like, okay, got to do it. So send her the money back with like a little apology in the PayPal, note. And the email she wrote back, I printed it out. I have a brag drawer, like a drawer of like my accomplishments. When I'm having a really low day, I'll walk over to my drawer and I'll like open it and be like, oh, yeah, people do like to work with me. Like, sure. Okay, suck it up, Brian. Like, get moving.
I like that. Yeah.
So I printed out that email. The email said, I put part of it in the book, but she said, I'm lucky to know that there are people like you in the world. An adversary who is literally preventing people from working with me. People would start working with me, and then she'd send them a message and say, don't work with Brian. He's going to scam you out of your money.
Wow.
That was her perspective. I still think I'm right, but I can live in being right, or I can go repair the relationship.
Sure.
So I had to repair it, and it costs like $1,000. But she's referred people to me as a result of it, which doesn't always happen, but it has as part of the story.
So it's one of the things that I think I've connected with your book personally is I found, and I don't know if it's just due to how I was raised, or I think it's one of the reasons I found a little success in this sales role is I find that I try to go just above and beyond for people, right? Yeah. And as I take this journey and I speak to more mentors, one thing that I am warned about, and I'm interested in your thoughts here, is for lack of a better term, almost being too nice, right? Or being too open to people and almost being steamrolled, right? Or people, I think what I'm headed for here is people taking advantage of your niceness, right? Have you bumped into that? And if so, how do you tackle that?
That's a really good question. I would say that's their business. You know, that's not on me. There's a great book called Loving What Is. It's one of the books I read in part of my kind of healing journey. And basically the author, Byron Katie, she says, there's three kinds of business. There's their business, your business, and God's business. By God, she just means like whatever you believe, like that's cool, you know? And so the way somebody responds to me is kind of their business. So by me being overly generous or overly sincere or overly helpful, sometimes it'll be off-putting. And I actually think it speaks a lot more about them. You know, it's, I don't think you can ever outserve somebody. One of my business partners, he talks about encouragement, and he says, you can never out-encourage someone. You can never encourage someone too much. Like, oh, you're encouraging me too much.
Yes.
You know, but we feel like we put up these artificial boundaries of like, maybe we're trying to be polite or we don't want to get hurt because we've been hurt in the past. But I actually believe like, what if we were to live open? Like, what if we were to be authentic? Like for real, dude, for real. I posted on my Facebook profile a couple weeks ago, I'm starting a pornography accountability group, like on my personal profile that my mom sees. And I said, if you want to walk this journey with me, you want to stop dealing with this crap and just live in a life of integrity, come join me. I had 16, 17 guys reach out to me anonymously. Oh, well, not anonymously. They reached out to me, just to me. We started this little group to hold each other accountable so that we can live the kind of life we want to live. And in the same way, it's like, what's the risk? You know, the risk of me being vulnerable about porn or the risk of me being vulnerable about had broken relationships in the past, like that might lead to somebody's healing. So am I willing to go first? I think leaders go first, right? And great teachers are also students. And so I'm just going to share what I'm learning. I'm going to be vulnerable because I want somebody to look back on my life one day and be like, I can't believe I got to meet Brian Dixon because he just showed up so vulnerable and so authentic. And that made me not get divorced, you know?
Yeah,
or that made me love my teenage daughter in a way that I didn't even know I could as a dad, you know? And I think that's just so powerful. And I'm never going to see all the results of that, but that's just the way that I've learned to live. And it's free. It's a free way to live because I'm not telling myself a story. You know, I'm showing up for you just like I showed up for my team an hour ago. Like I just want to be one person.
Man, that's so interesting. You send this 360 assessment out. I'm assuming you move forward with this, start with your people. So I'm assuming that's the number one sort of bullet you got back is I'm so project focused or my head's down and I'm sort of, you know, head down, teeth grinding. I need to pick my head up, start worrying about these other people around me. Did you get any other feedback or just any other things that you could take from that? Or is that really the soul or big takeaway?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't shared this either because I re-looked at it in getting ready for our conversation. And I actually had a number of people say, Brian, you're too hard on yourself. I thought that was really interesting. But, you know, there's some virtual mentors out there who are really hard on themselves. And I like that. I might not love everything about them or their message, but guys like Grant Cardone and Gary Vee and Lewis Howes, guys like that, like they're really hard on themselves.
Yeah, they are.
Like I actually believe in that, you know, like it's actually the Apostle Paul in the Bible. He talks about how like what does he say? Like I train my body for the contest. Like there's different interpretations, but it's basically like, I'm going to work my butt off on myself so I can show up for the event. So you know what? People are going to think Brian's really hard on himself, but if it makes me better and it makes me better to show up for people, like I want to be my toughest critic because I'm competing. There's like that Matthew McConaughey, quote that you've probably seen all over Instagram where he said, I'm chasing myself 3 years from now.
That's right.
And I'm like, of course I am, man. Like I want to improve every single day and every single year. That's who I want to be. So that was one thing that showed up. One of my friends, Kaylin, she says her sort of life motto is like, great story, next. Because people have been telling her whole life she has some sort of blood disease or something where she's in the hospital to like empty her kidneys for a week, a month. Like she's in the hospital and yet she rocks it as like a pretty well-known speaker. Like she's killing it.
Yeah.
Freaking love that girl. Like she's amazing. And her whole life motto is like, people are going to tell you stories. They're going to tell you stories about yourself. They're going to tell you all kinds of stories and you have the option to believe it or not, you know? And so for me, I'm like, Okay, people think I'm too hard on myself. Thank you. Next. Like, great story. Next.
Yeah, I think I'm on that philosophy as well. One of the quote I have written in the bathroom here, it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it says, it's something like, God will not have his work made manifest by cowards.
Oh,
and
I love
that
it.
is it hits me. It hits home for me. I think that hits that work ethic. Like, okay, next story. You spent some time talking about the assessment. I think the next thing that I wanted to touch on, and I think it's an interesting pivot for you, is you spend some time talking through mastermind groups. And, sort of a correlation or maybe a thought track that I had as I was reading through your book is you spend a lot of time talking about the relationships that you have with people. We spent a lot of time talking about this today, just rekindling or working on the relationships with those around you. This mastermind group, and I'm going to give you a second to talk about just really what that is. But I thought it was interesting that we talk about working on those relationships with the folks around you. And then if you surround yourself with the right people, right, and you get in a mastermind group and it's like-minded individuals, and you're spending those cycles and that time developing those relationships, who knows where that goes, right? But I'm kind of running down your talk track. I saw kind of the lines we were putting together there, and it was really, it was getting me going.
I love it. My best advice for the millennial out there is to get yourself in a mastermind group. A mastermind group is essentially goes with the concept of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you think about it, look around and pay attention to who you're spending time with and realize that you start to develop habits and traits and hobbies to fit in with the people in your life. And so instead of starting with all those people in your life and try to be more like them, because that's what inevitably happens, look for people you want to be more like. So that's what I did. I actually just moved to a new city, to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I didn't know anybody. And I spent the first 3 or 4 months doing as many lunches and dinners as possible, getting to know the business leaders. I had a local friend who gave me a list. She's like, these are all the people that are the movers and shakers in town. You need to go meet with them. About half of them met with me. I text, email, etc. And so over the course of a couple months, I met with almost every one of them. And as I did that, I was paying attention for, do I want to be more like this person? And I made a list of 5 guys, and I looked for some criteria, and I reached out to 5 of them and I said, listen, every Friday at 6 a.m. at this Starbucks, I want to meet with the 5 of us, 6 of us total, and we're going to challenge each other on our goals, on our dreams, and hold each other up when we're falling down. If you're in, let me know if you're in. Every single guy was in. We met consistently for a year, and all of our stuff blew up. Like, I got to leave my job and start my business. Other guys grew their business. One guy sold his business. One guy transitioned from one to another. Like, it was amazing what happened, because we'd show up on a Friday morning like so down because the work was really hard or the week was really hard, but left built up. And that's what a mastermind can do. It can build you up and hold you accountable to be the person that you really want to be.
So you kind of put together your own ad hoc mastermind group there, right?
That's
I mean, you got into Louisiana, had a few introductions just due to a friend, and then you pulled together your own. After tearing through your book 1.5, 2-ish times, I've done some research on the mastermind groups.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to be frank, it's exciting talking about it, but I got a bit overwhelmed, right? In that just here in the Houston area, I'm going to say there's 1,000 masterminds.
Right.
And that's probably an exaggeration, but there's a ton, right? And all verticals, all sorts of number of attendees and different entry costs and what they're looking for and doing for you. So I'm interested in, are there any criteria that just out of the gate you look for, or that you say, this is not something you should get involved with, or it's a waste of time?
Yeah. That's a great question. There's kind of 3 kinds of, there's a lot of ways to break it down, but one way to break it down is financially. So there are mastermind groups that you pay for that are led by some sort of a guru, leader, thought leader kind of a person that you want to be more like, and that person's curating the group, but really you're trying to learn from that person in a group setting. Then there's the peer-led mastermind, which is, I want to reach out to people. I'm maybe going to lead it, or at least work with somebody who's going to lead it. And we're all kind of at the same point. Maybe a couple guys are a little further ahead, but we're all kind of at the same point, so we can all move together. And then there's the one that you lead, that you actually charge for, and you work with people that are 3 to 5 years behind you in your career or in your development. My friend Mike Kim says you should have all 3. And he does. He has one he pays for, one that I'm in with him that we're peers, and then ones that people pay him for. So I love that. I think in an ideal world that makes sense. We have our own mastermind that we charge. It's $12,000 a year. We took 30 people with application only. And so that's the one that I get paid for. And those are students, those are people that I'm investing in, but they're significantly further behind in their business than where I am right now. I have 2 mastermind groups that I meet with that are my peers. And this is more in the online kind of coaching and writing space. I don't currently have a mastermind that I pay for. I have a coach that I pay for. But, when the right fit comes along, it depends on what you're looking for. I believe that the student becomes like his teacher. And so think about it that way. If you're going to pay for a mastermind, find somebody that you want to be like. And so as an example, read somebody's book and go, oh man, I love that guy's book, or I love that lady's book. I want to be more like her. Then find out if she has some sort of a program and start there. And then you can go local or virtual. Everyone I do right now is virtual. It's all online because we got Zoom video. Like, it's pretty powerful. There is something about sitting knee to knee with somebody, like sitting in person.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Our paid mastermind, we meet 3 times a year in person at pretty, fun, fancy places, because there's something about getting away from your life and your kids and everything that you can really focus on growing your business. But I'd say the best place to start is just start in your local area. Start, with a coffee shop that's 5 minutes down the road, so you don't have to deal with commuting traffic. And you take the initiative, because here's the thing. There might be a ton of other masterminds out there, but there's only you. There's only yours. Like, you're not competing with anybody. You're just competing with inaction. And then to reach out. So Houston area, I would look through the 40 under 40. I would look at the business awards. I would look at, the Inc. 500, Inc. 5000 of based in Houston. I would search on Instagram and look and do a geolocation of Houston and see who has, 1,000 likes per post. I do things like that. I Google like Houston entrepreneur, and I'd make a list, a dream list of maybe 50 people that you'd love to have in your mastermind. And I'd reach out to the first 5 and and say, I'd love you to be part of it. And you can invite a friend. And if every one of the first 5 say yes, it's 11 people. Like, that's a really good start. Somewhere between like 4 or 5 to up to 20 is kind of a good range. One of my mentors has a mastermind group of 48 people. And I just feel like that's too many. I want people to know my name. I want them to know my strengths and weaknesses. And I think you start to lose track after about a dozen people.
Man, that is so interesting. And I'm so curious on this mastermind group piece. Are there any mastermind groups that are ran? I'm looking for mastermind groups to avoid, right? So are there any mastermind groups that are ran by larger corporations, or something that's put on that's, more or less you're just kind of throwing money out the window?
Yeah, I think so. It depends. So I'm going to make a lot of enemies with some of the stuff I'm about to say, but I just believe it's true. There are these sort of franchise models where somebody got training over a weekend and now they have the license to like start a thing in Houston.
Exactly.
And they really have no business experience at all. They just read a workbook and now you're supposed to learn from them for the next year. Like, I want to go down that road. What I would rather do is find somebody who has the results that I want, or another way to look at it is somebody who's implementing a system that I trust. So for example, both my companies, we're diving into the EOS system, originally by Gino Wickman. I have the whole library right in front of me here. And it's complicated. There's a visionary, there's an integrator, there's these 90-day rocks, there's this vision traction organizer, like this whole model of seeing the way that your business is run. And they have a certification program. So it would make sense that I would invest in someone who has been certified and has trained startup companies like ours and gotten them to a certain level. So, and if they have a group model, hey, that's cool. Like, that's the kind of mastermind we're probably going to invest in the next year, because I really want to learn that system. And I've got the books, I've got the video training, but there's something about having a coach look at you. Like, that's why, so I'm a coach, right? A clarity coach. And so when people hire me, we do 1-hour Zoom calls. 3 1-hour Zoom calls is my package. And they think we're going to run out of time. They think they've got so much content that it's like, they're like, only an hour? Like, why don't we meet for a whole day? But I got to tell you, Joshua, like the first 10 minutes, they're already so overwhelmed. Like, they're ready to stop because I look at them and I'm like, well, let's figure out your audience, your message, and your product. And I ask like 5 questions or 2, sometimes three or 4 questions. And they're like, oh, I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because what's obvious to you is magic to someone else. You look at somebody else and you're like, well, why aren't you doing that? I don't say it that way, but like, why aren't you doing this? Or did you know you could do this? And it goes so fast because you're trusting that coach that has experience to see what you can't see. That's why we hire coaches.
Yeah. I think the mastermind, I think at least we're onto something here in that is a great way to reduce the learning curve. You're absolutely going to avoid making mistakes, and it's an investment, potentially an investment up front, or you do it yourself, right? But I like the idea of finding an author or find someone that's run down that path, latching onto them, maybe potentially getting involved in their mastermind group and having them pull you along and advance your process. I mean, we're really at a substantial rate, right? I'm a huge fan. I like that idea. Is there a mastermind group or groups that, being that roads to wealth, right? We're looking for different investment or wealth building strategies. Are there masterminds that are focused on the investment vetting or investment strategies or wealth building?
That's a great question. What I would do is, instead of sharing specific ones, I would share criteria, because I think I used to be a teacher, a classroom teacher, and good teachers use something called a rubric, right? So instead of like a grading system, they use sort of like, these are the exemplary concepts. So if a project has these 5 traits, then it's an A-level project.
Sure.
As opposed to looking for like, a true and false or multiple choice. Like, I want to be able to, because that's kind of how we grade things in real life, right? Like, do I want to buy that car? Well, I'm looking for affordability, quality, reliability, and a little bit of style. That's my rubric that I see the world through this lens of a rubric. So I would apply a rubric to whether or not you should sign up for a mastermind. So when it's wealth building related, the rubric that I would think through is, number one, is what they're going to teach still relevant? Because there's a really big difference between, somebody who grew their wealth 10 years ago and somebody who's actively doing it right now, because economies change like crazy, right? So I would look for that. I would look for somebody who's 3 to 5 years ahead of me, not 15 years or 20 years ahead of me. So I'd start there. I'd look for somebody who has the same sort of values that I'm looking at, that I want to live out. So it doesn't mean necessarily they have to be of the same faith or have a family or whatever, but you can just tell, like my friend Amanda Bond, she talks about bro marketers. And there's like this bro culture online. I'm like, well, that's not me, but that might be you. And you're like, I love that aesthetic. Like, I want to, I want to crush it in the morning and hustle all night. Like, that's fine. But maybe you're like, but I also want to put my daughter to bed. Like, so finding somebody who has the same vibe, right? Your vibe attracts your tribe. And I found that the more connected you are with their values, the more that you'll trust their advice and actually implement their advice. So yeah, somebody who's just a little ahead of you, not a guru. My friend Carrie Oberbrenner talks about 3 voices as a coach. You have the sage, who's like the person who's figured it all out, like the Dan Sullivan or the Michael Hyatt, like somebody who's been doing it for a long time and you're like, oh, he's an expert. Then you have the Sherpa, and that's what I look for. The Sherpa is somebody who's been up and down the mountain a couple of times and will take you with him, but is still trying to find the best route, like trying to still improve. And then you have the struggler, and the struggler is somebody who's never been up the mountain, but will go with you and you can work together. The mastermind, like maybe you look for a Sherpa, you look for somebody who's like a coach, but not necessarily such a guru that they're going to pass you off to their lower level people.
And I like the Sherpa term. I don't think I've heard that one. That's nice. Yeah. This is a question I skipped over early on, and I think it's just due to flow of conversation, but do you mind just walking through briefly, do you have an investment strategy that you follow or a portfolio that you mind walking through?
Yeah. I watched this training by Adam Rundle, and Adam basically said, don't invest in anything until your business is doing 40K a month. And I was like, okay, that's really helpful. So, we've crossed that number now, but basically what he was saying is the best investment you can make is in yourself. And so I think that's so important. So that's where I started. So, Brian Tracy, classic guy, it's probably like in his 70s now. He has the 10% rule. So 10% of your income goes into personal development. So I actually think the best investment you could possibly make is getting in front of the influencers in your space. So instead of like, okay, you should go buy some, duplexes or put it into a certain, stock or whatever,
exactly. Yeah.
Like use that same money but go sign up for somebody's mastermind. Go sign up for their experience. There's something called the Puerto Rico mastermind. A lot of my online friends are into it. And it's significant. It might be $10K to get there for the ticket plus the travel. But then you spend like 5 days in Puerto Rico with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs. Think about the return on investment with one idea around the tiki bar, at night. If they said, you know what, Joshua, when I see you, I realize like your podcast should be called this. And they give one little suggestion, one little tweak that all of a sudden gets you a new and noteworthy in the iTunes store. Like that kind of investment has an exponential return more than anything. So just under a year ago, we were traveling. It was whenever what was the stock that went live? I think it was it Uber? No, it was one of those big tech startup stocks that went live. I think it was Uber. So when there was a big IPO about 8 months ago or so, I put a couple $1,000 into the stock market just to go like, let's see what this looks like. And I also started my own side project, which was affiliating, which was making content for an online software program that I really like. And I wanted to track the difference in the two. And so I've created some training and some automated emails about this one email marketing program that I get a commission from. And I've watched my stock. My stock has gone up and down and up and down. Right now it's down, but for months it was 3x, and now it's like minus 50%. Yeah. It's been all over the place. But what has never gone down is the affiliate program that I created content for. So I actually think one of the best investments you can make is in creating original content. I'm bullish on TikTok right now. I think TikTok is the new social media platform. It's blue ocean. It's a great opportunity for people to start. And if you were to create content on there and invest in it for, one post a day for a year, 365 posts, that is going to lead to potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars over time if you have some sort of offer, as opposed to that same amount of investment in purchasing somebody else's stock or whatever part of their business. So I just believe in investing in yourself. You get to a point where it makes sense to leverage a little bit more, right? And have a little bit more, spread it out a little bit more. But over and over again, you can't beat the margins of online content. Yeah. You just can't do it. I did a live webinar on Monday night. It's Wednesday when we're recording this. I did a live webinar on Monday night, charged $47 a month for this new membership program, and I had 11 people sign up. Well, that might not be high, but think about that. 1 hour of my time plus the time to create the presentation, and that's $47 times 11 recurring revenue every single month. And now I can have that webinar over and over again and add people. That's just going to keep expanding. And I'm creating an asset that I could eventually sell. Yeah. Like, what better way to invest?
Man, I'm really interested in your sort of maintaining control, right? There's something about, I struggle dropping cash in, like you said, a duplex or a stock and then going online. I'm just checking that all the time. Like it's just out of my hands now, right? And that's stuff I've worked hard for, man. So you invest in yourself. Do you have 1, 2, 3 things that out of the gate, I'm on board with that strategy? Yep. What do I invest in, right? And I think I think the answer is everybody's probably a little different, but 1, 2, 3 things that you'd recommend right out of the gate. I'd recommend you jump on this.
Yep. You go to your bookshelf, you pick a book off the shelf that you love that book, and assuming the author's still alive, and then you find a way to serve that author. Show up and serve. I talk about it and Start With Your People. Show up and serve. So that means if they have a conference, you pay to go to the conference. You get there a day early or half a day early. You walk up while they're setting up and you introduce yourself and you say, hey, I'm here to volunteer. Put me to work. And they put you to work and you pretend you're on the team. You just join the team. You set up the table, you shake hands, you welcome people. You're there 6 hours early and you stay 6 hours late. And you go to serve. You don't go there for content. You go there to serve. You're the one, when they have flyers to hand out, you're handing out flyers. When they're directing the traffic, you're directing the traffic. You're filling up people's water. You're filling up people's coffee. You are there to serve. And what will happen is you'll make an impression on somebody on the team. And you're kind of on the team. And then you get this sort of this free mentorship, if you will. Now, it might mean they give you access to their high-level program. It might mean they just say thank you, and now they know your name. And it might mean they hire you to be on the team or to personally invest in you. Like, think about what that could potentially lead to.
Yeah.
Just the doors that are open. Like, Influential people hang out with influential people and they trust influential people. One of my most successful courses that I've ever done came as a result of me doing a course for another successful person, right? Once I produced one course, somebody said to his friend, well, who would you hire? And he said, well, I'd work with Brian because we did a good job together. And so it could take me 10 years to get in front of that person, or I could build a reputation with a friend who refers me. I talk about it, I call it the people map in the book, Start With Your People. So so here's the thing. There's already somebody in your life, like right now in Houston, there's already somebody who owns a business, who's part of some sort of a networking group. So that person that owns that business already, ask him or ask her, what are you working through right now? Just say, hey, it's almost the new year and I just had a question for you. Just wondering, what are you working through right now? Like, where are you struggling right now with your business? And what happens is the answer will reflect back to you what they think of you. So if I were to ask that question to, I don't know, somebody who owns a small business here in my town, they're going to say something about social media because a lot of people know me as a social media guy.
Sure.
So guess what? I can help them with that, right? So I can say, oh, let me help you with that. Let's do a coaching call. I'll do it for free. I'd love to help you. Get them some results. And now I'm going to get a world of referrals because I got them some results.
Yeah, man. And I think you give maybe even a more extreme example in the book of, I even wrote it down, Jack from church.
Oh, Jack, yeah.
Where you helped him with his blog and website. Someone there at the coffee shop spotted it and was like, oh man, can you help me too? And all of a sudden it just caught on fire, right?
That's what happens. If you think about it, everybody, especially influencers, my thing's growing. And so I've got a little bit of a reputation now. The book did well and, my business is growing. And yet it's probably once a month that somebody actually reaches out to me to ask for how they can help. I teach it in the book. And yet it's so, I think we mentioned Tim Ferriss before. Tim Ferriss talks about the same thing, right? He'd do these guest teaching, guest lectures at Princeton. And he'd say at the end, if you do this challenge, which was to reach out to 3 really famous people, if you reach out to them, even if they never respond, you just show me evidence that you reached out, I'm going to pay for a trip for you around the world. And people don't follow through.
That's right.
So you listening right now, be a person that follows through. Just to say something like, subscribe to somebody's email list and they say, these are my goals for the new year. And then write them back in March, 60 days in and say, hey, I was thinking about your goals and I'm just wondering, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like Tony Robbins would reply to that email.
100%. Yeah.
Because you show that you're paying attention.
Yeah. That's great advice. Man, I know we're pressing on time. I had one thing that I wanted to touch on really quickly. And for me, it's sort of the black sheep of the book. It's something that was such a twist for me. I mentioned it early on, the Mirror Manifesto. I came into this and I was going to originally ask you to play it, but I think my ask with us knowing that we're pressed on time is, are you comfortable sending that over to us? And I believe you have a few of them. I definitely want you to talk about what that is and how you came about it and that sort of thing. But if you're comfortable, I'd like for you to shoot that over and maybe us tuck that at the back of this recording. And for those that are interested, maybe they spend some time, they can listen to it, use it as a template, that sort of thing.
I love it. Okay. So the first thing I do when I get out of bed in the morning is I take out my AirPods, I put them in my ear and I open up my phone and I press play on what I call, my morning affirmation, which is basically taking the Mirror Manifesto, which I teach how to do a 10-step process, how to write one of these. But what I did is I wrote this sort of affirmation of who do I want to be a year from now? So living into that and, this is where I am. This is how many clients I have. This is what my income looks like. Here's who I'm, wherever you are in life. Maybe it's who you're dating or, how you're showing up as a husband or like how big your team is. Like, who do you want to be a year from now? Write it out as if it's true today. And then the first thing I do when I wake up is I put my AirPods in, I press play and I listen to it as I'm going and, having my first glass of water and getting started with my day. And it's just, what it is? It's a reminder. My friend Dan Miller calls it the rudder of the day. It sort of sets the sail for the day because you wake up and you're in the middle of a storm. Imagine your life is like a boat and you're in the middle of the storm. You're like, you wake up, you feel like you're late or you're early and what day is it? And what am I doing today? You kind of feel like rocked by the wind and the waves of life. But then when you press play, it's like, this is who you want to be in a year from now. So what can you do today? It's cognitive dissonance, right? It's a psychological concept. When your brain hears, this month you made $1.3 million, and then you log into your PayPal account and you see that it's at $300, you're like, ooh. And then your brain just automatically starts to think of ways to close the gap.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. I'll share the one that I used during my book launch, which was like, you're a successful New York Times bestselling author and you connect with podcast. Like it explained exactly what I would do. And that got me through about 45 days of what other authors that I've coached say it's the hardest 45 days of their life, is that month and a half leading up to the book launch, because you just feel like you can never do enough. Like,
sure,
you can never accomplish everything. No matter how well your book does, it always could have done better. And so that was sort of my anchor for, like, just grounded me during a time of emotional ups and downs.
Yeah. And I'm a very routine driven person. I'm doing jujitsu in the mornings. And when I get into the office, I carry my goals that I write every year in my wallet. Yeah. And I've got 3 short-term, 3 long-term goals that I read every single morning. And then I read a chapter, or I call it a chapter, but it's a single guest from the Tribe of Mentors, right? Tim Ferriss's sick book. Oh yeah, I see in the back. Yeah. So I read a chapter from that. What was unique about yours is you wrote it. It's your vision, your sort of your guidance, but you outsourced and you had someone else read it for you.
That's right.
That's so interesting.
And I don't know what it is, but I have something for like the Irish accent. Like, I just think it sounds cool. So like, I went on Upwork.com and I looked for like telemarketing, because I didn't want somebody who was a voice artist, because they're going to charge me thousands of dollars for a 1-minute thing or whatever. So I went to telemarketing in the categories on Upwork.com where you can hire people to do jobs for you.
Yeah.
And I said, and I only made it for Ireland, and you can't make it based on gender, but I wanted a female. And I said, your job is to read this 1.5-minute statement, read it into your phone 3 times and send me the audio. And somebody did it for $20.
Nice.
Like, no problem. It didn't have to be a professional. And I listened to her 3 versions, and I liked version 2. And so I know how to do some editing stuff. So I like chopped off the first one and the third one, and I kept the second one, and I saved it on my phone in Dropbox. And so every morning I open up Dropbox, I click play on the affirmation, and I listen to it. And she's like, Brian, today is going to be a great day, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah. Sally, or whatever her name is. I don't even know her name, and I'm like, and it just makes me want to run through walls, Like, I get off that one sales call that didn't go well, and I'm like, I listen to the affirmation again. I'm like, boom, let's hit it again.
Yeah.
What can I do today that the me a year from now will be like, dude, you did it.
Yeah.
You did it. It's almost, it's after 5:00 and we're recording a podcast. The me a year from now will go, way to show up to that podcast, dude.
That's right.
You did it. And so the affirmation will push through that, because the people in your life are like, dude, you need to take a break. Like, why are you working after 5? But that affirmation is sort of almost like a time travel. It's like a voice from the future reassuring who you want to be.
Yeah, man, that's great stuff. To your point, man, I know we are a couple minutes late, or a couple minutes after. I cannot thank you enough. I could spend another 2 hours digging into some of the topics in the book. Cannot recommend it enough to the folks that I'm around. I'm going to look, or I've purchased a couple copies to give away. I'll continue to push this thing out, man. I appreciate your time. How do the folks that are looking to connect with you just personally, how do they find you? How do they connect with you? Social media, all that good stuff.
I love it. Listen, you decide who you want to be. So if you want to take your life and business to the next level, I really believe you need somebody to read your label. Like, you need somebody to come next to you and go, dude, you could do so much better. And here's how. So that's my direct call to action, is if you're like, I like what you're saying, Brian, I think I need a coach. Hire me as your coach. Like, let's work together. So my website's briandixon.com, BrianDixon.com. We've got a coaching tab on there. You just click on it. It's 3 videos, explains the whole process. I feel like there's somebody listening right now. That's what you needed to hear today. So that's for you. Others who are not quite ready for that kind of investment, send me a message on Instagram, or find me on TikTok. I'm using both of them now. Brian J. Dixon on both of those platforms. Send me a message and be like, I heard you on Joshua's podcast, and here's my question. Or what do you think of this? I really try to do that personal engagement. I hit the little microphone button so we have a, voice message conversation. And then everything you need to know about the book and my stuff is at briandixon.com.
Awesome. Man, I appreciate the energy you put into the book and a lot of the content there. I'm going to continue to chew on that. Hopefully you and I get to keep a cadence here, man. I really, really appreciate it. For the rest of you guys, make sure you look at the book, check it out, get it on Amazon, everywhere a book is sold. I mentioned I've got it on Audible, which was fantastic. As always, man, I appreciate y'all's ears and stay on that grind.
Man, I could have went on for another 2 hours with Brian. I mean, as always, I can't thank Brian enough. I mean, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I came into it expecting to pull a few strategies around how I could start to rekindle and strengthen relationships around me. The idea of spinning up some sort of shared document that you can put out and have folks comment on and give feedback, anonymous feedback, that 360 assessment. That's a huge takeaway for me. The 360 assessment was great. I also really enjoyed the idea around the Mirror Manifesto. He plays a sample for it or a sample of it in his book. It's extremely easy to go find somebody on one of these shared platforms like Fiverr and have them read it off to you and then listen to that and continue to encourage and re-encourage yourself. Lots and lots of good feedback and information there. As always, please, if you have any feedback, comments, tips, strategies, guests that I should be looking out for, I should be reaching out to, questions that I could be fielding or bouncing off of Brian here, please reach out, info@rhodestowealth.com. And as always, if you have a second, feel free or jump on my website to drop me a review, a comment, share my platform, continue to help me grow and expand this brand. This has been an awesome opportunity. I appreciate your ears. Wish you all the best of luck and a better week.
Good morning, Brian. Today is just one day out of 365, each day adding up to your perfect year. Imagine the blessing of a life well lived every single day this year. Remember this year's verse, 2 Chronicles 7 verse 11. All that Solomon had planned to do in the house of the Lord and in his own house, he successfully accomplished. That's what will make this the perfect year. All that Brian has planned to do with the talents he has been stewarded, Brian, with God's strength, successfully accomplished. Success starts with a plan, and you have planned this year well. You've met with your team, you've worked with the coach, you've gotten on the same page with Julie, and now it's time to live out the plan. We know that success happens one step at a time, so today is crucial. Today is one step in a series of hundreds of steps, and the stakes couldn't be higher. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, people who are paying attention to your every move. It's time to show them what you're made of. So first things first, it's time to surrender your plans and schemes to God. He is your maker. He is your Father. He is the miracle worker. He makes a way where there is no way. Just when you think it's impossible, God shows up and over-delivers. Start your day surrendering to Him. Seek His guidance for this day. Ask Him to reveal His heart to you. As He promised, seek and you will find. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be opened. After your holy hour, it's time to get to work, learning and applying what you're learning. These big goals will not accomplish themselves, which means you will need to show up. Stay focused on the tangible goals that you've identified. Ask, what can I do today to move towards these goals? How can I stay focused on accomplishing what I planned today? Brian, let's review these important goals. First, I want you to picture yourself walking into the Kajabi Summit in September in Irvine, California. Looking around the room, you'll be recognized for all the incredible training content you've created and shared on your YouTube channel, your podcast, and in the Kajabi Facebook group. People will personally come up to you to thank you for getting them set up on Kajabi, for how you helped them clarify their website and simplify their sales process. You've established yourself as a trusted expert in the Kajabi community, and you are recognized from the stage for your contribution. Not only that, but you get to drive your Tesla Model X every day just for the fun of it. Picture what it will feel like to drive this amazing car knowing that you earned it. Work hard today to build relationships with potential Kajabi clients so you can reach your goal of 100 affiliate signups in Kajabi. And now I want you to picture your second goal, 150 members of TikTok Workshop. Think about the impact and the income your clients are making now that they've finally figured out how to use TikTok to engage their ideal audience, to drive traffic to the website, grow their email list, and to make more sales. You've established yourself as the go-to TikTok expert for online messengers. People look to you to teach them how to use TikTok effectively. You've done the hard work of learning the platform, of building relationships, of learning how to master TikTok ads, and of hosting regular webinars to present this opportunity to as many people as possible. You've established yourself as a TikTok safety expert as well, and are a trusted advisor to parents and schools across the country who have signed up for your online training class. And you finally received the message that you've been waiting for. You've been invited to speak at Social Media Marketing World on TikTok. In fact, speaking opportunities are flooding in because you've established yourself as the go-to TikTok expert. Now, let's talk about the Mighty Men Mastermind. One of the highlights of your year has been leading the Mighty Men Mastermind. You've gotten close with these guys, and you've seen them make tremendous progress in the 5 key areas of their life. You've seen marriages healed, porn addictions abandoned, finances growing, fitness goals finally being reached, and deep and lasting friendships being formed and nurtured. It's one of the highlights of what you get to do, investing in these mighty men. Your premier program, the Amplify Method, is continuing to grow. Your weekly consistency has finally paid off. Each and every week, people are joining the Amplify Method. They're clarifying your message. They're engaging their ideal audience. And they're creating and launching life-changing products and programs. The testimonials are flooding in, and people are finally getting the clarity they've been looking for. And let's not forget about Hope Writers. 2020 was the year that Hope Writers finally became a household name. You've already doubled your sales from last year, now averaging $3 million annually, and you show no sign of stopping. You have consistent marketing funnels and a dynamic team implementing the latest strategies to grow Hope Writers far beyond what you ever expected. Now you have over 5,000 paying members receiving more than $100,000 per month in revenue. As a result, you're completely out of debt and are about to write that final check to pay off your mortgage. You have quarterly getaways scheduled with Julie. You are thriving as a husband, father, and friend, and you love getting to work with Hope Writers. But most of all, the company is positioned for acquisition. In fact, You could take a month off and things would only continue to grow. Brian, there's quite a lot of work ahead of you today, but all you need to do is work the plan. Scatter seed and work the land. You were called to be a good and faithful steward of what God has given you, and He's given you much, so you know that much is required. But you're approaching each of these tasks with a learner mindset, humility, and boldness. You know that none of these accomplishments are your own, but are only done through God's power and strength. You're on track daily to achieve your fitness goal, and you stayed faithful when it comes to her, when it comes to your health and wellness. So let's get started. Let's make this an awesome day and start it out with your holy hour.
So smooth, you know what I'm saying? Q1 made the beat, by the way, just to let y'all know what's going on. Tell them, it's the road of the wealth, yeah. I do it for health, yeah. It's the road of the wealth, yeah. With my kids and my spouse, yeah. It's the road of the wealth. I do it for health, yeah. With my kids and my spouse, yeah. I'm financially sound, yeah. It's the road of the wealth, yeah. I do it for health, yeah. With my kids and my spouse, yeah. I'm financially sound. You the bad dad. If life about purpose, it give you something to seek in. I've been setting cash goals, financially speaking. I've been finding blessings through all of these demons. I pray to God, I give you something to reach with. See, I give you something to leave with. This life about goals and achievements. Your eyes on the prize, the hate out your mind, and pray to whatever beliefs in. Teach on the way, know that the beach on the way gotta shine hard, and the teacher's water, know that little seed, they gon' grow tomorrow. So every day gotta come with us. So they give you something to stand on, make it fall off when you land raw. Make you put some new friends on. It's the road of the wealth. I do it for health, yeah. My kids and my spouse, yeah. I'm financially sound, yeah. It's the road of the wealth, yeah. I do it for health, yeah. My kids and my spouse, yeah. I'm financially sound. You the bad dad.